July 11, 1780. The American Revolution wasn't just fought by men on distant battlefields. Sometimes the war came right to your front porch. And when it did, some people discovered a courage they never knew they had. This is the story of Martha Bratton, a South Carolina mother who faced down one of the war's most brutal officers, outsmarted the British Army, and helped change the course of the Revolution in the South. Her weapon? Unflinching resolve. Martha Bratton was home with her children when she saw them coming, a company of loyalist militia, dust rising from their horses' hooves. Leading them was Captain Christian Huck, a German-born officer from Philadelphia who had earned a terrifying reputation throughout the Carolina backcountry. Huck despised the Presbyterian patriots of the upcountry, and his cruelty had become legendary. As he approached the Bratton farm, Martha knew exactly what he wanted: the location of her husband, Colonel William Bratton, who was serving with General Sumter's Patriot forces. Standing on her porch with her young son beside her, Martha watched Huck dismount. His question was simple, his tone menacing. "Where is your husband?" "He's with General Sumter," Martha replied steadily. "Beyond that, I don't know." Huck's face twisted with rage. One of his soldiers leaped onto the porch, grabbed a reaping hook, a curved farming blade from where it hung on the wall, and pressed the sharp edge against Martha's throat. Her son stood frozen beside her. "Tell us where he is, or I'll cut your head off right here," the soldier snarled. The cold metal pressed into her skin. Martha could feel her pulse beating against the blade, but she didn't flinch. "I have told you the truth," she said, her voice steady despite the weapon at her throat. "But even if I could say more, I would not." For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then Captain John Adamson, one of Huck's officers, rushed forward and shoved the soldier aside, apologizing to Martha for the man's behavior. Her life had been spared, but her ordeal wasn't over. Huck ordered Martha to cook a meal for his men. She had no choice but to obey. As she prepared the food, her mind was racing, because what Huck didn't know was that Martha had already sent word to her husband. Before the Loyalists arrived, a neighbor had warned her they were coming. Martha had quickly written a note telling her husband that Huck was in the area and given it to an enslaved man named Watt, instructing him to find Colonel Bratton and deliver the message. After the meal was ready, Huck locked Martha and her children in the attic. His men ate their fill, then rode to a nearby farm to make camp. They thought they were safe. They thought they'd won. They were wrong. That night, Watt found the Patriot camp and delivered Martha's message to Colonel Bratton. Armed with this intelligence, Bratton gathered his men and moved silently through the darkness, surrounding Huck's camp as the Loyalists slept.
Sunrise, the Patriots attacked. The battle was swift and devastating. Captain Christian Huck, the man who had terrorized the Carolina backcountry, was killed in the fighting. His company was decimated in what became known as Huck's defeat. Among the wounded was Captain Adamson, the officer who had saved Martha's life. When he was taken prisoner, he asked to see Mrs. Bratton. She recognized him immediately, and despite everything she'd endured, Martha took him in, treated his wounds, and nursed him back to health. In the midst of war, she showed the mercy that her enemies had denied her. But Martha Bratton's most daring act was still to come. On another occasion, Martha received a warning. British soldiers were approaching. Local loyalists had informed them that a large quantity of gunpowder was stored on the Bratton farm. Martha knew she didn't have time to move or hide the powder, so she made a decision that would echo through history. She destroyed it herself, setting off an explosion that denied the British a critical military resource. When the British commander arrived moments after the blast, he was furious. "Who destroyed this gunpowder?" he demanded. Martha stepped forward. "It was I who did it," she declared. "Let the consequence be what it will. I glory in having prevented the mischief contemplated by the cruel enemies of my country." Martha Robison Bratton died on January 9, 1816 at age 66. She's buried in York County, South Carolina, beside her husband. Today, the Bratton home still stands as part of historic Brattonsville, a 775-acre open-air museum. Her story reminds us that courage isn't just found on battlefields. Sometimes the bravest acts happen at home, when ordinary people face extraordinary circumstances and refuse to back down. Martha Bratton stood on her porch with a blade at her throat and chose truth over safety, country over comfort. That's the kind of courage that builds nations.